teaching bit out of the way. So yeah, I think I've started the recording. So you will remember the last lesson we did before half term was plotting quadratic graphs. That was the actual Hegarty exercise. So that's where you got like an x cubed. So you were plotting those. And then we also looked, not that you did any Hegarty on it at that point, but we also looked at reciprocal graphs. So that's like 1 over x or 1 over x squared or something. And I think there was another. Was there another type of graph? I can't remember. But we basically were plotting graphs. We were looking at plotting graphs. What I want us to look at today is a higher level skill where you're just getting to grips with the broad shape of the graph. And so we're just sketching graphs today. And this comes up a lot at A level. So for any of you who are thinking of doing maths A level, this type of thought process is important for A level. So I just want to set this scene on these. Sorry, somebody got a query? Somebody got a query? No? No, okay. I'm assuming you can see it saying sketching graphs. Can somebody just confirm you can see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Okay, so just going back to basics then. So don't worry about the squares here. These aren't the squares are a bit irrelevant. This is just the shape of the graphs that's important. So where we've got straight line graphs, okay, in your mind you've got to be thinking y equals mx plus c, where m is the gradient, that's the slope, and c is where the graph the graph crosses the y-axis. So remember, if the slope is positive, if it's going up from left to right, m will be a positive number. And if the the line is going downwards from left to right, the slope m will be a negative number. So ignoring the squares, okay, so not worrying about the squares, graph number one might be y equals 2x plus 1. Okay, it's going uphill, so it's going to have a positive m, the 2, and it's crossing the y-axis at, for example, plus 1. So that's what that graph might be. So if you were just sketching that graph, you would just basically sketch it looking like that. And what the questions would probably ask you to do is just make a note of the points where it crosses the y-axis, maybe the x-axis, but the question would direct you. But I just want you to be looking at that and thinking, yeah, that could be y equals 2x plus 1, whereas the one on the right, it's got a positive gradient, but it's crossing the y-axis below the x-axis. So the y-intercept is going to be a negative number. So that one could be, for example, y equals 2x, say minus 2. Still going upwards, but crossing at minus 2. Now the two at the bottom, they're both going downwards, so they're going to have negative m values. So the first one, for example, might be y equals minus 2x, but plus 1. Okay, so negative gradient because it's going downhill, but a plus 1 because it's crossing the y-intercepts at a positive value. And then completing the set, bottom right-hand corner, that might be, for example, y equals minus 2x minus 1, for example, something like that. Okay, it's going downhill, so a negative gradient, but crossing the y-axis at a negative value. So if you were being asked to sketch y equals 2x plus 1 or y equals minus 2x minus 1, that's what we're talking about, just sort of the general broad shape. Now, quadratic graphs. Okay, so this is where we've got an x squared. So remember, where it is a positive parabola, so a smiley face, we're going to get a positive x squared component. Okay, and so for example, this first one might be, for example, y equals x squared. The next bit, the x bit, it could be positive or negative, so we really don't know. So let's just say plus 3x. But what we could tell here, for example, when this value here where it crosses, when x equals 0, we're going to be getting a negative y value. So what we can say is that final component might be, for example, minus 3. Okay, so it's a smiley face graph, hence the x squared. Can't say too much about this second term. Okay, so could be plus 3x, it might be minus 3x, who knows? But what we can say is that final term must be a negative value, because when x equals 0, so nothing along the corridor, 0 plus 0 and minus 3. So that could be right. Okay, so just sort of following through on those. The second one, that might be, for example, y equals minus x squared, because it's a negative parabola. It's a sad face. Maybe could be plus 3x, could be minus 3x, who knows? We can't really say too much about the second term. But what we can say, again, when x is 0, our y value is a negative number. So we must have a negative term to finish. Okay, and then just quickly, so for example, this bottom left could be y equals minus x squared, say plus 2x, but plus 2 on the end. So minus x squared, because it's a sad face, plus 2 on the end, because we can see when x equals 0, we're getting a positive y value. And then finally, to complete the set, y equals x squared, say plus 2x, say plus 2. So that sort of gives you a bit of an introduction to sketching quadratic graphs. And then cubic graphs, these are the ones you've seen beforehand, where it's going up left to right and it's just shaped like this first one. That's really just going to be something like y equals x cubed on its own. Might be 2x cubed, might be 3x cubed, but the fact that it's going through the origin means we don't have any further terms. And whereas the one below it would be y equals minus x cubed. Now, where we've got a few more terms involved, that will give us graphs like on the right-hand side. Now, this first one, again, it's sort of going up left to right. So that's going to be x cubed. But then we're just going to have a couple of other terms. So, sorry, x cubed, excuse me. Okay, so it could have some x squareds, and it could have some x's, and it could have some normal numbers. We will look into that more another time. Okay, but basically what would happen here is that we would almost be going the other way. We'd see where we go and cross the axes. So say that's at minus 3, 0, and 3. Once it's factorized, that's going to give us x plus 3, and then x minus 3 as our 3 factors. Okay, remember, if you're working backwards, okay, you'd say to yourself, what value of x would make this bracket 0? That would be minus 3. What value would make this bracket 0? That would be 0. What would make that bracket 0? Okay, and that would be plus 3. So if you then multiplied all of that out, you multiplied out those 3 brackets, that would give you the precise version of that. And then finally, again, don't want to spend too much time on this one, but that bottom one would be a y equals minus x cubed, and then some more terms after it. Okay, so what I want you guys to do today is exercise 299, please, Hegarty 299. And all the questions are really asking you to do is to what could the equation of the graph in the diagram be? So what Hegarty is actually asking you to do, you've just literally got to go and say, okay, I can see that that one was one of those chappies. Okay, but what I would quite like you to do a bit extra to that, please, because I think you're just going to rattle through that. What I would also like you to do, but obviously that's going to be your answer for Hegarty. That's the bit that's going to give you your percentage mark. You're just going to say A. But I want you to go and think in your head, what could be these other graphs? You know, give just in your mind, or just sketching, what would that look like? What would that look like? What would all the others look like? And what would be great would be if you could just take 1 or 2 of the questions that you've done and actually just go and write down what the equations were, write down roughly what the sketches would look like. So pretty much like I've done on this slide, please. Okay, so I want you to do the Hegarty exercise and get a good percentage. But if you're going to upload something for me, I would like you please to actually go and try and do all 6, not just the one. So for example, with this particular question here, which of these graphs could be y equals x squared minus 2? What could that look like? Well, that's going to be a smiley face graph, but crossing below the x-axis. So that would be graph number 5. Okay. So what about y equals minus x cubed? Okay, well, that's the one up there. Okay, what one is, let's change color, let's go purple. What could that one be? Well, that is a positive. I'm not sure I've actually drawn that one anywhere. I think I might have forgotten. I think I've made, I can't see this bottom, it's covered up. Hopefully that's this one there. I'm hoping that graph number 6 looks like that. I can't see it because I got my black box over it. So yes, so that's going to be graph number 6. Now graph E, obviously that's a straight line graph going upwards left to right, crossing below the x-axis. So that would be that one. And then finally that leaves that graph there being that one up there. So let me just explain that again. I want you to do that Hegarty exercise, and you're literally just going to be writing A or B or C or D. You're spotting the graph. But I want to stretch you a bit further on that. I would like you to take 1 or 2 of the questions and write down all 6 of the possible answers that's given to you. And I want you to go and draw the 6 possible sketches, please. Right, okay, so that's the work for today. Now on to our one-to-ones, okay? I've just done these alphabetically, so I'm saying I'm going to kick off with Ebs, Vinay, Daisy, Hannah, and Ben today at those times on the left, on the right-hand side. Obviously, if somebody misses one of those, that's, you know, if somebody's not listening now, what I might do, I might just go and invite the next person on the list to come along. Okay, so it might be, so maybe Caitlin and Ivy, maybe you could just keep an eye out today, because it might be that I get on to you guys if either Ebs, Vinay, Daisy, Hannah, or Ben aren't around. Okay, but the idea is that I'm going to get 4 or 5 done today, the majority done on Wednesday's lesson, and then we'll just finish off on Friday. I will go and put all these times on to show my homework, okay? But if you want to just note when your time is, that would be good. Now, with the work I would like you to do on Wednesday and on Friday while you are waiting for the one-to-ones to finish is to go and do the Hegarty 300 and 301s. Those are on reciprocal graphs, okay? So that would be the work for you to be doing Wednesday and the first part of Friday's lesson while I'm finishing off the one-to-ones. Right, it's 9:24. I want to kick off at 9:30, so we're doing well. Has anybody got any queries either about the one-to-ones or about the work I've set you? Okay. Just to, so all I'm thinking about with these one-to-ones, just so you can see what type of thing I'm thinking about. I'm just generally interested just to find, you know, how are you finding lockdown? So just really quickly on that, you know, are you coping all right and everything? How are you finding your total workload? Because I'm interested in seeing the whole picture of, are you getting overworked or underworked or whatever you ever? Again, that would be quick. More importantly, from my point of view, is, you know, how are you finding the maths? Too much, too little, too easy, whatever. And then a quick query about whether you thought about doing any of the extension work. And then also, I'm interested to know in your views about, do you think you would be coming back to school if Boris goes and announces in the next week or two that you know, year 10s could be back about the 15th? So I'd just be interested to know how many of you think, yep, I'm definitely going to be coming back, or no, my parents want to keep me back for a bit longer. Okay, that's it, guys. So I'm going to stop the live recording. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording now. I'm going to stop recording now. So that's stop.